these coverings, fix all the structural issues and cracks below those coverings, and then have a waterproofing and slope it positive so we have maintain the integrity of the balcony. Otherwise, we will have to continue to have issues with these balconies and access to the units.
Yeah.
Then we inspected a few units on the first floor in detail. Again, we found, as you can see in these photographs, cracks in the floor, cracks in the ceiling, gaps between the doors and the inside of the floors, water intrusion, structural damage, spalling and rusted exposed bars. And we have detailed reports to outline all these issues per se. And recommendation. Continuing again for first floor, the problem we found, the ramps and the deck outside is equal in elevation to the interior unit. So any water that sits there will eventually penetrate through and below the doors and the glass, causing water flooding. We believe this is a design defect. The original designer should have, designed the floors lower outside than the interior floor of the units, 3 to 4 inches. So this way the water does not go inside the minute it rains. And there's other issues too that we, with the glass and the doors and the windows that I think some of them were sealed and so forth, but still there's issues because of the design construction defects that we found. And the mezzanine and the staircase, again, this is a typical picture of the staircase where you can see efflorescence. This is the water penetrating the walls and the CMU, and the cement is reacting with the calcium carbonate, causing efflorescence. It's a phenomenon that is typical of water really damaging the concrete, and the cement is and the concrete is getting weaker with these penetrations of the water over time. So we need to fix this. Either we have recommendations too as well for the staircases and the concrete and the plaster and all that. So these are just examples of what we saw. Again, mezzanine and staircase, we continue to see cracks, water intrusion. These are the pipes from the planters. The planters need to be reworked, removing the soil, sealing the interior, waterproofing, changing these pipes, and it goes on and on and on. And there's a lot of cracks too that we found in the terraces and the mezzanine as well that we need to take care of. And here's just a redacted summary of observations, that the physical evidence, we saw signs of structural damage, water infiltration, it just repeated. We tested with a hammer, we tested with visual observations for significant, cracking and structural damage to the building and the garage and the staircase, all the balconies. Basically, and then the roof, there were some issues with the roof, negative slopes again. We need to waterproof the roof and take care of the issues with the water. And then this is a redacted recommendation. And some drawings. In conclusion, we interviewed and we got bids from contractors, 3 of them. We went really with the board and the manager, scrutinizing every bid. And all the bids have been received. I think the board is going to go through the contractor. There's one available, or all of them. They will make a decision and then proceed with the concrete restoration. Any questions? I'll be happy to answer. Thank you so much.
I have a question. When you discuss the balcony, the flooring that homeowners put, like tile and wood, of course all that has to come up. Would it be your recommendation that after it is repaired and waterproofed, that they maybe just do like a concrete design on there, not put any type of tile or flooring on top of that?
I wouldn't recommend tile or flooring or any artificial turf or any planks or anything, because what happens is the rainwater will come and seep through the gaps.
Right.
and the joints and sit there and ferment below the tile or below the flooring, that will over time and heat and pressure and chemical reaction, because the water from the rain has chemicals, you know, it will eventually penetrate through the,
Right.
so I wouldn't recommend.
What would be
But-
your recommendation after it's waterproofed to put on there? Is it just leave it like that?
I would leave it as is. I mean, aesthetically, if the unit owners want to put anything else, that's up to management and the board. But I wouldn't recommend it. Just leave it. It'll be,
Right.
the surface will be, you know, ready for, you know, pedestrian, you know, walking on. and
Yeah, because
use.
that's an important point that we need to let the homeowners know, that whatever's there is gonna come up, and, you know, I'm sure the board will make a motion that nothing gets put back down again, because it only damages the building. That was my question. Nobody has questions? Okay.
Okay.
Any questions, Gabby or Floyd?
No, I don't think they have any questions.
Well, I guess I touched on every subject so
And
far.
and you mentioned,
I'm sure the moving question is cost, right? I mean, we went down a pretty hefty list of recommendations, if you will. As Andrea mentioned, we've spoken to, you know, we've gone through 3 bids thus far. Decision has not been made yet, so, you know, the continuing steps beyond the decision being made is then going to kind of dictate, you know, cost and things like that. But I'm sure everyone is curious about that outside of when the work's gonna start and so forth.
and before you mentioned, the whole project is lasts 6 months to a year, right?
Which one? The construct, the
Starting construction?
up to 12 months. Again, you know, that's the initial schedule. But there could be, you know, variations in that, plus or minus, because of maybe hurricane, holidays, but the idea is 12 months.
And it could go longer, obviously.
It's possible to go longer, yes.
Yeah.
Example, the COVID pandemic. I mean, hopefully we won't get hit again, but if that's the case, there's shortage of materials, backlog.
Another question that we have that happens quite, you know, with these concrete restoration, when you're working on the balcony doors will have to be locked in a position from the outside so the owners cannot exit, correct?
That's a good question, yes. For liability and danger to the owners, the contractor and I would make sure that the sliding doors are locked from the, you know, outside. We would recommend nobody will use those balconies during
Right. Very
restoration, because A, the floor is not safe,
important. Right.
B, there's falling debris maybe,
Mhm.
3, it's unsafe.
And it could be locked from the outside for months at a time, correct?
It depends, because usually they do a group of balconies stacked at a time, so it will be locked for not 1 day, it'll be more than 1 day.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
It'll be, yes, I don't know how many days, but it will be for quite some time. And of course, they will cover, you know, put plastic on the glass to protect it, and
Mhm.
everything else, you know, tape so the dust doesn't go inside the unit, all these details.
No questions?
How soon do we anticipate next steps?
Well, after,
Well, what has to be done next is to put together a budget, a special assessment budget, because the concrete restoration and the painting is one part of the special assessment, the way I understand it, because there are gonna be other facets that may be added in. I know that there's the RTU unit that needs to be replaced on the roof. I know there's been some consideration for the lobby and the elevator floors. There may be some landscape upgrades that'll be needed once the entire project is completed. And then, of course, you have to make allowance for attorney's fees, the engineering fees, and a contingency for any overruns. A lot of times they start these jobs and, you know, they anticipate X amount of concrete that needs to be chipped away and repaired with the rebar. And sometimes, most of the time, it increases because they really can't see exactly what's going on until they actually start working on it. So an area, they may estimate this big, it may turn out to be this big, you know, so those are all variables that happen in every project.
What about the permits? When you submit the permits, there's going to be a permit for the whole thing that we're gonna go through, or is it gonna be separate? Because when it comes to permits, the city takes forever.
Typically, when the contractor submits the paperwork to the city, it's usually under a master permit. Within that permit, you know, there's, you know, concrete, stucco, yeah, so it's one basic prime permit.
So the timing of this is gonna vary because once we put the budget together, we're gonna have to go out for a loan to the bank. Andrea's already reached out to a couple of banks and has their loan package, so there's documentation that needs to be sent to the bank. All the documentation is readily available except for the budget, the special assessment budget that she's working on the final numbers with the budget, with the board. Any other questions? I think the board was going to, if I'm not mistaken, make a decision today, take a vote on which contractor they're gonna be choosing for the work.
Yeah.
So I don't know if anybody wanted to discuss that. Do you wanna talk about the contractor that?